Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again for another First Impression Fridays, and today I'm going to be looking at Akro Awake and Oh My Soul by 4160 Tuesdays, so stay tuned for that. And if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. Now before I get into the video, I'm just going to say today, my scent of the day was Sedley by Parfums de Marly. What was your scent of the day? Let me know in a comment down below. And actually a comment about the fragrance. I still remember when this was originally released, I think 2 years back, and it did have pretty terrible performance. Today, very impressive. I know some people have said they don't get that great a performance even from the new 2020 release, but I had sillage like crazy for hours, catching whiffs of it, much stronger than a lot of fragrances that I own, and that was just from 2 sprays. So for me, it's a beast mode fragrance. I do enjoy it. I know Parfums de Marly sometimes gets criticized as being, I don't know, a Cologne house, but I don't know what else smells like Sedley. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but it is a good one. I do enjoy it, and that was my scent of the day. And conveniently, actually, the perfumer for Sedley, I believe it's Olivier Cresp, also has his own brand, Akro. And now I had originally wanted to try from them, I think he's got one, Awake, and it's a coffee fragrance. I love coffee fragrances, even though I don't like coffee, but I love the way coffee smells, and it's supposed to be really fantastic. Now, when I was buying samples from Lucky Scent, they didn't have samples of that one, unfortunately, but he has one called Malt, and I do like boozy fragrances, so I decided to give that one a shot. And I've just heard a lot of good things about Oh My Soul from 4160 Tuesday. I do like the brand. I think they have a lot of really great fragrances. They're not super talked about, so they kind of feel like a hidden gem brand, even though a good amount of people do know them. And yeah, so I'm going to try this one as well. I've heard a ton of good things. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to start with Akro Awake, Akro Malt. So hopefully this is a really good boozy scent. I've heard a little bit of mixed commentaries on this one. I know some people don't like it, but we'll see how it goes. Oh, I can smell it from here. That is pretty strong. Okay, that does have a bit of a booziness. It's not as boozy, and it's enjoyable though off the start. So it's not super boozy, although there is a definitely prominent boozy note, but it's not like it does actually have a single malt kind of a feel. Now with fragrances like Killian's single malt, which is a whiskey fragrance, or I think it's supposed to smell like a single malt whiskey, I actually get more of a rye whiskey. With this, I am getting a bit of an actual Scotch with this one. It's not actually super potent, because the smell of Scotch can be a little bit off-putting for me personally. I tried to like Scotch, wasn't really a fan of it, but it does have hints of it. There's almost a light smokiness there as well, and a sweetness, and I think it's a little bit of a sort of woody vibe that it has in the background there. So it does definitely have a very prominent whiskey note, and it is a little bit more like a Scotch whiskey. I personally have a little bit of a bias preferring rye whiskey. I am Canadian. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but we have really good rye whiskey here. And there is a nice sweetness along with it. It's very subtle sweetness. It's not, I wouldn't say this is a sweet boozy fragrance at all, but it definitely does have a reminder of an actual Scotch, which if you like the smell of Scotch, you probably will like this one quite a bit. But I'm actually going to move on to Oh My Soul and see how this one is, and let this one dry down a little bit anyways, and come back to it in a moment. So let's do this one here. So I really hate these dabbers, so I just usually dump it right on my hand to get a good dose of it. That is really interesting. Now, I remember why I put this one with Akro. I'd heard it's a little bit boozy, and it's definitely not that boozy. I do get some light boozy vibes with it, but it isn't like really, really in your face kind of a booziness like Straight to Heaven, or especially Straight to Heaven Extreme on the opening. But it's also a very complex scent. There's a lot going on here that makes it harder to tease apart, I think, than maybe the Malt was. And it's a little bit sweet and just a little bit smoky. Sort of incensey. I get a little bit of incense. It's not like a very super incense heavy fragrance, but I do get a little bit of that in the background. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the Akro Malt, see if it's changed a little bit, let this one dry down a bit, and see what comes out. So, back to the Malt by Akro. It's actually, I think, much more prominently whiskey than anything else. And I would say if you like a fine single malt or Scotch whiskey, this is definitely a good fragrance. And I actually find this a little easier to digest than a lot of the really potent Scotch fragrances or Scotches that I've drank, where it's very, very aggressive smelling. This has a little bit of a sweetness in the undertone, which is very subtle, but really takes away from having too much of that Scotch whiskey edge. So again, not a big fan of Scotch whiskey, but this is pleasant. It is enjoyable. I don't know if I would actually say it's better than something like, say, Single Malt. I really like Single Malt by Killian. Main reason being is that it does remind me a lot of rye whiskey. So this one, if you're looking for something that reminds you a lot of Scotch, this is a good choice. And to be honest with you, I think this would be a good one for a nice formal occasion. This is the kind of fragrance that certainly can give the impression that perhaps you had too much to drink, because I think a lot of people will get that whiskey vibe from it. There's even a little bit of that. I mean, if you're familiar with Scotch, often you get a little bit of the smell of the like an oak barrel or something in there. I actually get a little bit of that with this one. And so it is actually a really nice, really well done rendition of that malt whiskey, that Scotch smell. Very, very well done. And actually, this is more what I was expecting going into something like Single Malt by Killian. But again, I prefer that one because it just reminds me a lot more of rye whiskey, which I really do. I mean, I like rye whiskey. I drink rye whiskey occasionally. And so that one I do prefer to this one, but I think it is a nice one. Again, good for fall, winter, which is about right now. And I think it is also a good one for formal occasions or evenings out. Definitely would be the most suitable time, I think, for this one. It doesn't feel as much like a casual fragrance. And again, there is just this actually very nice sort of slight sweetness pulling it away from being, too aggressively alcoholic. But it is very, very boozy. Good one. I like it. But as I said, though, I think there are others that I prefer over it as far as a boozy fragrance, especially in the whiskey variety. Now, I'm going to go back to Oh My Soul, hoping that it's developed a little bit or to pick it apart a little bit more. And there is something in this fragrance that I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but something in this one, there's a bit of a freshness there that really reminds me of another fragrance, and I can't think of off the top of my head what fragrance that is. But there is a freshness, a lightness, and I honestly think you could probably wear something like this in spring for sure, because the freshness is there. It is fairly light. I think this one, Malt, is much, much stronger, much heavier of a fragrance. Where this one is a very light, easy to wear fragrance. And it's nice. It's not quite what I was expecting. I'm going to have to try this one more, but I actually am a little surprised. Now, I remember a little bit more about why I picked this one. It also has honey in it, and I don't get much of the honey. I get a little bit of booziness, but there is this sort of fresh, sort of airy quality to it that, again, it just really reminds me of another fragrance, but I can't think of what it is. Now, it is a nice one. I think it's definitely a little bit more casual, a little bit more easy to wear than, say, Malt. So I would say that this one is probably easier to wear when you're just relaxing, having a good time. Definitely seems, on how light it is, something that would be easy to wear in spring, maybe even summer. And I'm a little bit surprised, mostly because I'm wondering if it would be something that would be easy to wear in the fall or winter, just because it does come off quite light. Now, I don't know if the malt is drowning it out, but even if that is the case, it is still quite a light fragrance. Overall, I think actually Malt I like more. I love boozy fragrances, so I'm a little bit more partial to it, and I don't get a lot of the booziness in Oh My Soul, but I'm going to have to return to this one later and see. But it's not bad by any means, but I think if I put these two together and said which one I like better, I'm going to have to go with Malt. But yeah, so I'm going to leave that there. Have you guys tried anything from Akro or anything from 4160 Tuesday? Leave a comment down below on what you've enjoyed, what you haven't. And if there's any suggestions you have for things from the brand that you think I should try, let me know. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.